A typical Gen Z paycheck barely covers rent, leaving more than half of take-home pay gone before food, transportation, or debt payments. The cost of a one-bedroom apartment has soared above $1,500 per month. Buying a home now typically requires $400,000 and a 7% mortgage, and even good jobs often cannot bridge the gap. This is not just bad luck. Something fundamental broke, locking an entire generation out of adulthood. But what exactly happened, and who benefits from the new rules? A starter budget for a young adult in 2024 reads like a warning label. Take-home pay for a recent college graduate, even in a mid-sized city, often lands between $2,500 and $3,500 a month. The median rent for a one-bedroom apartment now sits around $1,550 a month. That single expense can swallow nearly half a paycheck before taxes. Add basic groceries, about $400 a month, plus $250 for transportation, $180 for utilities and internet, and $150 for health insurance or out-of-pocket medical costs. Student loan or car payments add another $300, and even the most careful planners need to set aside something for emergencies, often another $200. All told, the fixed essentials for a single renter total roughly $3,030 a month. For someone earning $3,500 after taxes, that means nearly 90% of their income disappears into non-negotiable costs. For those making less, the math simply does not work. Bank surveys show that over half of Gen Z cite the cost of living as their top financial obstacle, and most lack even 3 months of emergency savings. Many report that their actual expenses are much higher than they expected once they move out on their own. This is not a matter of skipping lattes or budgeting apps. With essentials eating up 50 to 70% of take-home pay, there is little left for savings, investment, or any sense of security. The numbers leave no room for error, let alone for building a future. A young renter in her mid-20s scans real estate listings, hopeful for a shot at her own place. The numbers quickly shut the door. The median price for an existing home in 2024 reached $407,500, and mortgage rates hovered near 7%. For first-time buyers, monthly costs, including an upfront down payment and additional expenses like insurance and taxes, often make ownership double or triple what rent costs. Sales of existing homes dropped to just over 4 million, the lowest level in almost 3 decades. The supply of so-called starter homes has shrunk, not grown, even as more young adults reach the age when past generations would buy. The story is not just about high prices or interest rates. Investors and corporate buyers now account for more than 20% of home purchases nationwide, and in some Sunbelt cities, their share climbs even higher. In places like Atlanta or Phoenix, nearly 1/3 of entry-level homes have been snapped up by investors, often with cash offers that regular buyers cannot match. These homes are flipped into rentals or held off the market, shrinking the pool for would-be owners. Zoning laws and construction costs make building new affordable homes slow and expensive, so the inventory gap keeps growing. For many in Gen Z, the idea of owning a home feels like chasing a mirage. The math does not add up, and the competition is stacked against them. Each year, more young adults give up on the dream and settle for another lease renewal, watching the path to ownership drift further out of reach. Landing a so-called entry-level job now means navigating a maze of requirements that didn't exist 10 years ago. Job postings labeled entry-level routinely ask for 2 or even 3 years of prior experience. In 2024, more than 60% of these listings demanded some form of relevant work history, compared to just over 1/3 10 years earlier. For many recent graduates, the search for a first real job feels like chasing a moving target. Applications pile up, but the feedback is often the same: not enough experience. Automation and AI have quietly erased many of the lowest rungs on the career ladder: junior analyst positions. Basic digital support and routine administrative roles are now handled by software or outsourced overseas. Companies prefer to hire candidates who are already plug-and-play, reducing training and onboarding to a minimum. For those just starting out, this means unpaid internships, short-term contracts, or piecing together freelance gigs. A graduate from 2024 described taking on 3 unpaid internships before landing a contract role with no benefits, calling it a ladder with half the rungs missing. The result is a loop: no job without experience, no experience without a job. A growing share of Gen Z workers now rely on gig jobs as their main source of income. Nearly 52% have done freelance or gig work in the past year, more than any previous generation. For many, this is not about extra cash or the promise of flexibility. It is about plugging holes in a budget that never balances. A rideshare driver in her early 20s describes weeks where her earnings swing from $900 to $300. depending on demand and platform changes. She covers groceries and rent one month, then scrambles to pay her phone bill the next. There is no paid time off, no health insurance, and no employer retirement plan. If she gets sick or her car breaks down, the money stops immediately. Bank records show that about 40% of younger workers now juggle multiple gigs just to keep up with basic expenses. The result is a cycle of instability, where every month feels like starting from zero, and long-term planning is impossible. For Gen Z, the gig economy is not a shortcut to freedom. It is a sign that stability is now a privilege, not a guarantee. A college diploma now comes with a bill that lingers for years. For Gen Z, student debt is no longer an exception. It is the default. Among young borrowers, the median balance falls between $20,000 and $25,000, while the average for all student loan holders has climbed above $38,000. The promise was that a degree would open doors, but the numbers tell a different story. Many of the most popular majors, like education, social work, and the arts, lead to early career salaries around $40,000 to $42,000. After taxes, that leaves just enough to cover rent, groceries, and a monthly loan payment that can easily run over $200. For many, the math simply does not work. More than 80% of Gen Z student borrowers say they have put off major milestones, buying a home, starting a business, even moving out because of debt. A recent graduate describes watching her first loan payment hit after the pandemic pause ended. Her budget flagged a deficit before the month was over. She skipped therapy, delayed dental care, and texted a friend asking, "How am I supposed to survive this?" This is not just a personal struggle, it is a generation-wide pause on adulthood, with debt payments crowding out every next step. Inflation has rewritten the rules of basic survival for young adults. The cost of essentials, rent, groceries, transportation, and healthcare has climbed faster than wages, leaving little margin for anything beyond the bills. In 2024, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment stands at $1,535, up more than $200 a month since 2021. Food and service prices have followed the same pattern, with no sign of returning to pre-pandemic levels. The result is a generation forced to make trade-offs between necessities and often unable to plan for the future at all. This pressure is reshaping how and where young people live. About 42% of Americans aged 18 to 30 now live with at least one parent, a figure that has doubled since the turn of the century. Among those in their late 20s and early 30s, nearly 1 in 5 are still at home. Fewer than 1/3 of Gen Z say they feel financially secure, while over 50% report being very or extremely worried about money. In surveys, many describe themselves as surviving, not advancing, caught in a cycle where every paycheck is spent before it arrives, and milestones like homeownership or starting a family fade into the background. The anxiety is not abstract. For millions, it is a daily reality, shaped by numbers that never quite add up. Today, nearly half of young adults live with parents, and over half say they will never gain financial security. These are not temporary setbacks. They are the framework of a new adulthood. Until the system changes, Gen Z is not falling behind. They are being held in place. The future depends on what breaks first.